I'm TenDam. I'm a teacher in regression therapy. I'm the founder of the Tasso School. I came into this because I was interested in reincarnation, and I wanted to write a book that would give a kind of summary of everything that has been written about it. And doing that, I came across the first books on regression. Now, regression at first had nothing to do with therapy. It was just a way to get people in to relive things from childhood or earlier. The very first regressions that have been documented they were published, I believe, in 43 in America, or 42 in America. And since then there have been several more cases. But in therapy, it became much later. The first book on regression therapy that was really therapy was in '67, Dennis Kelsey, who was working together with John Grant, his wife. And the first modern regression therapy was 78, publications of Fiore and of Nelaton. Anyway, I developed my own way of working. I'm pretty open-minded. Everything goes on one condition: that it works, that it has results. So I think that what typical is for our approach, for the people who work in Tasso and teach in Tasso, is that they are very practical and that they work pretty quick, to the point. At the moment I am, or at the last years I must say, especially before COVID, but after COVID again, we are traveling around the world to teach our methods. Sometimes just as guest teachers and sometimes to really teach the Tasso program. And as I said, it's very practical oriented. We don't like too much philosophy. And if you're practical, sometimes you discover new things. So I think we are pretty innovative. And doing that, of course, you discover strange things. For example, in some countries, you find that a large part of the problems doesn't come from childhood trauma, doesn't come from past life trauma, but comes from things that you can best describe as curses. And okay, we find that, we work with that, again, as practical as we can. And the interesting thing is, if you're very practical and you work with deep thoughts, deep emotions, deep processes, you discover a lot of things. And again, many times I'm in a session, I'm not sure, is this true? But I keep an open mind and I see if it works. And if it works again later, and later, and again later, you're pretty sure that you have found something that is at least interesting. So, Tasso is active directly, of course, in Holland with our English language program, but we have licensees in India who are working also in other countries like Dubai, Singapore, Hong Kong, and even in the United States and in Kenya. And we have licensees in Germany and in Bulgaria and in Russia. By the way, interesting national differences. For example, psychologists usually don't go for our kind of work, especially, of course, academic psychologists. But in Brazil, it's pretty common. I mean, it's not common that a psychologist is doing past life therapy, but that a past life therapist has been trained as a psychologist, is a professional psychotherapist, is rather common. And even more so, that's true in Russia. Because in countries like my own, in Holland, it is very uncommon. So there are interesting national differences. Also, some people, some cultures are more open for spiritual things, and others less. And the way in which we work, in which we tie in immediately to the emotions the person has, and then to somatic experiences, what they experience in their body. Some cultures are much more related to the body than others. Brazil comes to mind. Brazil in general has a good contact with emotions and with the body. And if you think at the other end of the spectrum, like Britain, there's not so much relation with the body, and there's not so much relation with emotions. And there are cultures in which some emotions even don't exist, or almost are inexistent. So like, for example, the Japanese, who cannot feel anger. Anyway, we work with concrete problems that are hindering people in their daily life. And we try to resolve that in a way that is as short as possible and as deep as possible. Which means that some people don't like that, and other people are attracted to it. So you could check for yourself if this is something that appeals to you or not.